Hey, have you ever encountered a situation where you're sitting back and you can almost predict what's going to happen next? The the indicators are there, the signals are there, everything in your mind, call it spider sense, gut, intuition, whatever that is. Everything is telling you that this will eventually happen. And you don't know what the timeline is, but you do have this keen sense that something is going to change and it's on the horizon. It may be a very near horizon, it might be a more distant horizon, but it's on the horizon and you know that this is the case. Well, this is where I'm living right now. And if you haven't guessed it, we're back into another episode of Tim Unscripted's Life Lessons Learned. And I'm telling you, this is the horizon that I foresaw back in 2023 when I first got access to the chat version of ChatGPT. I looked at it and I went, oh, this is really neat. This is going to be a tool that will change the way that people interact with information technology. And I have not yet been wrong in that sense. And I'll tell you a story about how this kind of worked out for me. So getting early access in November of 23 and, working the prompts and looking at different things. And by the beginning of 2024, I was putting together hypothetical conversations with historical figures. And I was posting them to LinkedIn. And I was getting a great response. Now, mind you, my posting was, I took a screenshot of my actual chat thread and I put it in a picture. So I give a little bit of narrative context and, in the text-based portion. And then the photos were the screenshots of the responses that ChatGPT was giving me at the time. And it was overwhelming. And it validated what I felt back in November. And I think it was February and March. Those couple of months, and maybe even April of 2024, those couple of months solidified in my mind that generative AI is the tool that will change everything that we do as far as human interactions with computers. And I say that from the standpoint that while what I was doing was novel at the time, what I've seen happen since is an adaptation of that very thing. Because generative AI it's not predictable. There's big terms that you can use like stochastic and nondeterministic. It's math looking for the next right association, just like we as humans do when we're trying to understand what people are saying to us through the course of a normal conversation, or what people are intending to convey to us through a meeting or through a seminar or a webinar or a workshop. We're making meaning out of things and we're compressing the detail similar to what a large language model or any sort of generative AI model is doing mathematically on a computer. There is a corollary here. We compress a lot of information in order to simplify it because we're getting so much coming in through our senses all the time. That being said, when we isolate things and we look at it from the mathematical perspective, these are the things that we discount because they're not dangerous, they're not high risk. These are the things that are interesting, but they don't have value at the time. These are the things that we clearly have no reason to be paying attention to. And these things down here, these are the things that we really want to dial in on and figure out how they relate to all the other things that we know, meaning we've experienced and learned along the way in life. And so the models are trained to try and mimic all of that. And so the outputs, because they're not deterministic, very much the way we are not deterministic. We learned through a series of processes and frameworks and whatnot, but much of that learning is classroom based. It's not necessarily the way that we learn how to drive a car, or the way that we learn how to ride a bicycle, or the way that we learn how to play a sport. That is non-deterministic. There's a lot of randomness and variability in how we learn as human beings. And so what we're trying to do is build learning systems that have a similar process. By that I mean there are rules around it, but it is not strictly structured so that you get the same output or outcome every single time you interact with the model. In fact, one of my favorite sayings is, all models are wrong and some are useful. And this is the age that we're living in, specifically around generative artificial intelligence, because this non-determinism, this statistical probability analysis, this association with concepts and terms that are mathematically oriented in these vector data stores and vector databases and lots of math, guys, lots of math. Sometimes it blows my mind how much math there is involved. Those associations, similar to what we experience as human beings, are the things that really drive the novelty in how these models respond back to us. And that's what's the entertaining part, because we have no way of knowing what that next response is going to be, or the revised response, because it's just seeking to try and make its best effort to match a pattern based on the words or the photo or the fill in the blank that you're giving it as input, as context. And going back to the original point, when I noticed that, when I felt that, both intellectually felt it and felt it here, in my soul, my heart, or, whatever it is, the intuitive part of my humanity, that was the time where I went, we need to be ahead of where the scientists and the researchers are going. We, as humans, need to have a vote in all of this. We need to have a way to influence what this outcome is going to be, because it's going to be either beneficial or detrimental to humanity. Now, you probably picked up on this already. There's a great deal of debate, and regardless of what side you're on, what perspective you bring, generative AI and its subsequent, I'm trying to think of the right way of describing it, its subsequent evolution. This is the inflection point. This is the point where, even as I think about this and record this video and consider the conversations that I've had over the course of the last, 2 going on 3 years, these are the moments where we are in a good position to be able to influence how this works for the benefit of all humanity, not just a handful of people, but all humanity. And my hope is, especially in this video, that you get the sense that I think deeply about this, and I'm trying to consider what this is going to do for all of us, good or bad or even neutral, going forward into the future. And this is a life lesson learned that I am experiencing firsthand in reality. Being in the product development field, if you followed me for any length of time, so you're getting probably 2 or 3 stories for the price of one on this one. Being in the product development field and specifically focused on software product development, I am feeling this. I am feeling this on a personal and professional level, because I'm on the business side of this development team. I'm on the risk mitigation side. I'm on the planning side. I'm on the, the requirements gathering side. I'm on the side that is much more human focused and human oriented in my interaction, in my day-to-day work, than the build focused members of my team. Whoever they are. They could be software developers. They could be reliability engineers. They could be hardware people like I was for a number of years. Builders think about things a bit differently than business folks think about things. And generative AI has moved a constraint that used to be over here on the build side of these processes back to the business side of these processes. And that, my friends, is extremely significant. And I haven't said much, and this video is going to be a ways out in my scheduling. But I am hoping that by the time this video goes live, I will actually have a way forward that's publicly available to describe what I think this could look like going forward through 26 and beyond. This is one of those things where you may be getting updates from life lessons learned based on actual experience that's being lived in the present moment, rather than me reflecting on all the things that I've lived through in the past. This might be one of the most exciting things that if you're following me in this series on the YouTube channel and seeing it on LinkedIn and wherever else this ends up getting posted, I am hoping that I will at least have had an opportunity to influence the conversation now before it moves in a direction that I would prefer that it didn't move. So, real-time life lessons learned. I am working through it. I am putting together my thoughts and collecting my reflections and talking to people on a regular basis about what generative AI and its subsequent mutations, in addition to evolution, will mean to us as human beings. So stay tuned. I hope you're excited like I am, like I have been since November of 23, when the first chatbot ChatGPT interface was released to the public. This is another Life Lessons Learned brought to you by Tim Unscripted.